Infidelity doesn't begin in the bed, it begins in the soul. Let that land for a second, my friends, because once you understand that, the whole illusion starts to fall apart. The story we've been sold, that cheating is just a physical act, some slip up at 2 a.m. with another body, that story, it's not just incomplete, it's dangerous. Because by the time his body betrays you, his energy left weeks ago. The lights were still on, sure, but the soul had already packed its bags. And before we go 1 second deeper, I need you to hit that like button and subscribe. Not because I want to feed the algorithm, but because I'm feeding you the truth, and I'm putting my soul into this. This isn't content, it's clarity. And if you feel it already, I need your support to keep speaking it. Let's build this space together, one honest, healing conversation at a time. Now, hey ladies, imagine this. You're sitting across the dinner table from the man you love. His phone's face down, his fork moving, his mouth talking, but something's off. You're laughing, but he's not laughing with his eyes anymore. The conversations still happen, but they echo now. The spark, gone. The warmth, fading. It's like trying to love someone through a pane of glass. You're in the same room, but it feels like you're kissing a ghost who's memorized the script of who he used to be. You feel the shift, even if you can't explain it. He still says, I love you, but now it sounds like a password instead of a promise. He's not angry, he's not cruel, he's just not there. And yet when you ask, even gently, are you okay? Are we okay? He turns it around, tells you you're overthinking, that you're too emotional, that everything's fine. But my friends, silence can be louder than words, and emptiness can be felt long before evidence appears. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And for some men, infidelity is not about thrill or lust, it's about escape. Escape from their own dissatisfaction, their own shadows, their own silence. And when they don't know how to heal that within themselves, they start reaching for distractions outside of you. He's not necessarily looking for love, he's looking for anesthesia. And maybe it hasn't happened yet, maybe there's no other woman in sight. But when a man disconnects from himself, he starts disconnecting from you. And you feel it. You feel it in the way he stops asking about your day, in the way his hand doesn't linger when he touches you, in the way he looks through you instead of at you. And I know it's confusing because he's still there, still saying all the right things, still doing just enough to keep doubt from turning into decision. But deep down, you know, and you start asking yourself, is it me? Am I imagining things? And you're not, you're waking up. And waking up is hard. But my friends, it's also sacred, because once you see the truth, you stop trying to fix what you didn't break. You stop begging for scraps from a man who's already stopped feeding the connection. You stop apologizing for feeling too much and start honoring the fact that your intuition was the first voice trying to protect you. So stay with me, because what we're diving into next isn't paranoia. It's perception. And once you learn to trust that perception, you'll stop settling for presence without passion and start reclaiming the love that starts with you. Number one, the body stays, the soul left weeks ago. A man doesn't cheat when he finds someone better. He cheats when he stops recognizing himself and blames you for the mirror. Let that sit with you for a second, my friends. Because this is the moment where things stop being romantic and then start getting real. Infidelity doesn't explode into your life like a grenade. It seeps in like slow poison. Long before the lie, the late text, the lipstick on the collar, there was a shift. Subtle, silent, spiritual. It didn't start in his hands, it started in his eyes, because that's where the soul speaks and where the soul leaves first. Imagine being kissed by someone whose lips are warm, but the feeling is cold. You're in the bed together, but it feels like sleeping next to a mannequin wearing his face. He still says, I love you, but it lands like a pre-recorded voicemail. The body's here, sure, but the energy, the heart, the soul, checked out. And you start asking yourself questions. Am I losing him, or has he already left? You begin to play detective in your own home, scanning for clues in tone shifts, in half-hearted hugs, in the way he forgets what you just said 2 minutes ago, but you find nothing concrete, just this quiet ache in your chest and a storm in your gut. You feel the absence, but can't prove it, and that's what makes it so brutal. Because how do you confront someone about a presence that's gone missing when his body's still sitting right there across from you at the dinner table? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that's exactly what's happening here. His emotional retreat isn't about you. It's about him, his disowned shadow, his unmet needs, his growing dissatisfaction that he doesn't have the language or the courage to name. And when a man doesn't face himself, he runs, not always with his feet, sometimes with his soul. And here's the kicker. When he starts disconnecting, it's rarely loud. He doesn't slam the door. He doesn't rage. He doesn't pack a bag and leave a note. No, he just starts fading, like a photograph left out in the sun too long. Day by day, less color, less texture, less of him actually showing up. And the woman who loves him, she becomes an echo in her own relationship, heard but not felt. You ever look into someone's eyes and suddenly feel like a stranger in your own story? That's not paranoia, that's perception, that's your intuition whispering, he's not here anymore, at least not in the way that matters. And you start doing what too many powerful, compassionate women do. You blame yourself. You replay every argument, overanalyze every sentence. You shrink, adapt, overfunction. You try to win him back while losing pieces of yourself. But here's where we flip the script. My friends, if a man's soul ain't present, his body is just furniture. You don't need to rearrange yourself to make the room feel alive again. His absence is not your failure. It's his refusal to stay awake in his own life. Because love doesn't just require loyalty, it requires presence. And when presence leaves, the bond unravels whether he admits it or not. You didn't lose him to another woman. You lost him to a version of himself that he hasn't been brave enough to meet. And that truth, it hurts, but it also sets you free. So stay with me, because what we're diving into next is what happens when your soul senses the distance before your mind has the evidence. The part where intuition speaks louder than logic, and why trusting that whisper might just be the bravest thing you ever do. Number 2, energy never lies, words often do. You don't need proof when your spirit already sensed the absence. Let's start right there, my friends, because that quote, that truth, it'll save you years of doubting yourself, years of shrinking, second-guessing, staying silent in rooms where your intuition was already screaming. Because there's something women feel long before they know, something that doesn't show up in screenshots or late-night calls, but in vibration, in the energy. And energy? It never lies. Maybe you felt it before. You're sitting beside him on the couch, feet touching, phones out. You say something funny, something light, something real, and he nods without looking up. You talk about your day, and he offers a half-hearted, "That's crazy," like a vending machine spitting out recycled replies. The words are still coming, but the feeling behind them, gone. It's like you're being watered, but somehow still wilting. Why? Because the gardener ain't present. And then the questions creep in. Is it me? Am I being needy? Too sensitive? Am I imagining all this? No, my friend, you're not crazy. You're awake. You're feeling what his words are trying to hide, because when a man checks out energetically, his mouth might still be moving, but his soul has already muted the connection. And here's the wild part. He might not even know he's doing it. That's what makes this so confusing. He'll say, "I'm tired, I've just been busy, it's nothing," but your gut knows better, because you don't need him to say it. You feel it. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." That's why the more he avoids the truth, the heavier the air becomes. The more you try to connect, the more you notice the distance. And yet, instead of honoring what you feel, you start trying to logic your way out of your own knowing. You try harder, speak softer, love louder, hoping he'll notice, hoping he'll return. But you can't unfeel what your soul has already registered. Energy never lies. It's the first language we ever knew, before words, before roles, before "I love you." And that energy, it either expands you or it drains you. You ever hug someone and feel emptier afterward? That's energy. You ever talk to someone for an hour and feel like they weren't even there? That's energy. You ever walk into a room and know something was off before anyone said a word? That's energy. And when the man you love starts moving differently, you feel it first. He stops asking about your dreams. He stops remembering the little things. He stops offering his attention like it's a gift and starts giving it like a chore. The emotional voltage drops and you're left sitting in the dim light of a love that used to glow. And what does he say when you finally bring it up? Why are you being like this? You're too emotional. You're always overthinking. Nah, you're just tuned in. You're just done pretending that crumbs feel like dinner. You're just tired of being emotionally ghosted by someone who still occupies your space. And let me be clear, this isn't about being dramatic. This is about being honest. Because when a man's energy changes, when his presence starts to feel like a shadow of what it once was, you don't need proof. You need permission to believe yourself again. And so, my friends, trust the frequency. Trust what you feel when the room gets quiet. Trust that gut pull when the words don't match the energy. Because the truth isn't always spoken, it's felt. Stay with me. Because up next, we're going even deeper. We're talking about emotional betrayal before the affair ever starts and how to spot it, not in his actions, but in his absence. Number 3, emotional cheating wears a nice suit. Emotional cheating wears a nice suit. It doesn't show up at your door with a hotel key. It walks in quietly, hangs up its coat, kisses you on the forehead, and forgets to feel. My friends, this one hits hard because it's invisible. You don't see it coming. You don't find lipstick. You don't smell perfume. But something's different, and deep down, you know, emotional infidelity doesn't walk in loud. It sneaks in through silence, through disinterest, through the way he stops choosing you, not all at once, but in pieces. He's still coming home, sure, but he's not coming closer. His body's there on the couch, in the kitchen, beside you in bed, but his soul is running laps elsewhere. And when you try to reach him, when you ask how he's doing or why he's so far away, you get a predictable playlist of reasons. I'm just tired. I've got a lot on my plate. Work's been crazy lately. You've heard them before, and maybe once they were true. But now they feel like pre-recorded excuses playing on loop to avoid the real conversation. He's living with you like a housemate who forgot your name. You pass each other like ghosts. You talk logistics, not life. Conversations revolve around errands and bills, not dreams or fears. There's no fire, no fun, no curiosity left, just surface, just survival. And the worst part, he still tells you he loves you, but it feels like muscle memory, not a heartbeat. And that creates a storm in your soul because the relationship looks fine. Nothing explosive, no scandal, but something sacred is slipping, and you're the only one who seems to notice. You start questioning yourself. Am I being dramatic? Am I expecting too much? But deep down, a quiet voice keeps whispering, he's gone and he didn't even pack a bag. Carl Jung once said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And when you're sleeping beside someone who can no longer meet you emotionally, that's not just loneliness, it's emotional starvation. But let me remind you, this is not your failure. This is not your lack. This is what happens when connection is replaced with convenience. When a man doesn't have the courage to tell you he's checked out, so he just stops checking in. Stay with me because next we're going to expose the subtle manipulation that keeps you second-guessing your truth and calling it love. Number 4, gaslighting, the coward's alibi. Gaslighting is the coward's alibi. It's how the guilty rewrite your reality when they're too weak to face their own. Now take a breath, my friends, because this is where things stop being subtle and start getting dangerous. This is the part of emotional betrayal that doesn't just steal your peace. It makes you question your sanity. It's not just what he says. It's what he makes you feel about yourself. You sense the shift. You bring it up. Maybe it's just a soft question. Why do you feel so far away lately? Or is something going on between us? And instead of truth, what do you get? You're being dramatic. You're paranoid. You always think the worst. God, why can't you just relax? He flips it. He flips you. And suddenly, you're not talking about his distance anymore. You're defending your emotions. And that, my friends, is not a conversation. That's a psychological ambush. Emotional warfare in a silk robe. Gaslighting doesn't yell, it whispers. It smiles while it erases your intuition. It hugs you after planting the seed that you might be the problem. And over time, you start questioning the very thing that once kept you safe, your inner voice. You think, maybe I am overthinking. Maybe I am too sensitive. But here's the Denzel truth. A real man doesn't gaslight your gut. He faces your truth with honesty. Because only a weak man needs to twist your mind to hide his behavior. Only someone running from themselves would rather make you doubt your vision than look you in the eye and say, "You're right, I haven't been present." Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's exactly what gaslighting avoids. He doesn't want to look in the mirror, so he makes you the funhouse reflection. He avoids his shadow by casting it over you. And while you're trying to fix what he broke, he's slipping further away, protected by the lie that it's all in your head. But listen to me, your head might question, but your body knows, your soul knows, and your energy has been whispering the truth since the moment his presence shifted. You are not crazy, you are not too much, you are not the problem. You are someone brave enough to notice the distance and strong enough to speak it. So stay with me, because next we're talking about intimacy that becomes performance, and what it really means when the body stays warm but the touch feels cold. Number 5. Intimacy without emotion is just performance. Intimacy without emotion isn't connection. It's performance with better lighting. Let that settle in your chest, my friends, because this is where the pain starts to whisper through the most sacred parts of you. When the emotional bond fades, but the physical contact stays, it creates a special kind of confusion. You start asking questions like, if we're still sleeping together, does he still care? Or worse, if he doesn't touch me anymore, is he touching someone else? But the truth? It's not about quantity, it's about presence, because you can have sex every night and still feel invisible, or go weeks without it and feel like a stranger in your own bed. Either way, the signal is the same. Something sacred is no longer being honored. Carl Jung said, what you repress in the soul becomes your shadow. And when a man stops facing himself, when he buries guilt, resentment, emptiness, it doesn't disappear. It shows up in his most vulnerable spaces. And your bedroom becomes the stage for all the things he refuses to deal with. Suddenly, the tenderness disappears. The eye contact fades. His touch feels mechanical, like he's following choreography he memorized a long time ago. He's touching your body, but missing your being. You feel used, even if he doesn't mean to use you. You feel exposed, not because you're undressed, but because he's no longer meeting you in the moment. And here's the twist most people don't talk about. Sometimes after emotional distance grows, the physical intensity actually increases, but not from love, from guilt, from the desperate attempt to keep things looking normal, from the fear of losing control. It's not intimacy, it's a cover-up. It's a fireworks show meant to distract you from the silence afterward. You start asking yourself, is this still passion, or is it a performance he puts on so I won't ask too many questions? And that question alone tells you everything, because real intimacy isn't just skin to skin. It's soul to soul. It's the way he holds you after, the way he breathes your name like it matters, the way he slows down enough to be with you, not just on you. So if you've been feeling that shift, if the connection has become colder, shorter, or strangely intense, don't ignore it. Your body knows what your heart is still afraid to admit. Stay with me, because what's coming next will shine a light on the quiet war happening in your own home. The arguments, the tension, the blame games, and the emotional manipulation that always seems to leave you apologizing for asking to be loved. Number 6, blame shifting and manufactured conflict. A guilty man needs a villain because the truth would demand too much courage. My friends, let's talk about a strategy many don't see coming. Because it's wrapped in everyday moments, in small arguments that seem too petty to mean anything, until you realize they become the pattern. You're not imagining it. He's fighting more, over less. And it's not because you changed, it's because he needs a reason to disconnect. He's trying to rewrite the story, and in this version, you're the problem. It starts with a little eye roll, a sarcastic comment, a complaint about how you load the dishwasher or what you said at dinner. He becomes easily irritated, short-tempered, distant, but when you ask what's wrong, he flips it on you. Why are you always looking for problems? Suddenly, your attempt to get clarity becomes the crime. This is not coincidence, this is strategy. He's setting emotional fires so he can blame the smoke when he walks away, because if he can provoke you just enough, then he can justify his exit. She's too emotional. She's always nagging. I can't even breathe without her getting upset. Sound familiar? That's not relationship breakdown. That's character assassination. Slow, subtle, quiet, but lethal. He's not just avoiding accountability, he's building a defense. And in his version of events, he's the victim who had to leave, had to pull away, had to find peace somewhere else. But let's be honest, this has nothing to do with you forgetting the groceries. This is about him being too scared to say the real thing. I'm pulling away and I don't want to face what that means. So he creates chaos and watches you clean it up, picks a fight, storms out, then makes you question why it happened at all. And slowly, you begin to doubt your own behavior. You wonder if maybe you are too sensitive, too reactive, too much. You're not. You're just trying to hold together a house where the roof is leaking, and he keeps blaming you for the rain. Because if he can turn your pain into the reason he's leaving, he never has to admit that he was already halfway gone before the first argument ever started. So here's the truth, my friends. A real man faces what's broken. He doesn't light emotional fires and then call the smoke toxic. He doesn't create distance and then fault you for feeling the gap. That's not maturity. That's manipulation in disguise. And what's coming next? It's the final nail. The moment when you realize he's no longer making space for you in his dreams, because in his mind, he's already rewritten the ending, and you're no longer in it. Stay with me. Number 7, when he stops saying we and starts living me. The man who stops saying we doesn't walk out the door. He fades out of the picture frame and leaves you wondering when you disappeared. My friends, this one hits in the silence between sentences. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't come with a slammed door or a late-night confession. It comes quietly, when the future starts sounding like a solo act. At first, it's subtle. He says I where he used to say we. He talks about traveling someday, but you're no longer in the destination. He makes weekend plans without checking in. He speaks of his career, his goals, his life, as if your name got deleted from the vision board, and you're left holding the questions. Am I still part of this? Did I do something wrong? Why does it feel like I'm standing beside him, but not beside us anymore? This, my friends, is what emotional removal looks like. It's not about forgetting an anniversary or skipping date night. It's the slow erasure of shared dreams. The invisible chalkboard that once had your future written on it, now wiped clean, and you weren't even told class was over. It's the pause when you say, wouldn't it be nice to go there together? And he shifts his eyes, changes the subject, or says something like, yeah, maybe, we'll see. No enthusiasm, no imagination, no let's. That's the moment you're not just being left behind, you're being removed from the blueprint. Carl Jung once said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. And what's more important than being part of someone's future? When a man stops including you in his tomorrow, it's because emotionally he's already begun to step away today. He's grieving you quietly, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't know how to say the truth out loud, so he lets you fade. But here's where it flips. You are not a placeholder for someone else's evolving dream. You are not an optional detail in someone's long-term plan. If a man stops saying we, then you start saying me. Because the moment he stops seeing you in his future is the exact moment you are being called to step back into your own. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are not optional. So here's the truth, my friends. If he stopped saying we and started living me, you're not imagining the distance. You're feeling the reality. And now it's your turn to choose presence over pretense. Because the love you deserve doesn't leave quietly. It shows up boldly. If this message hit home, press that like button, subscribe for more truth spoken with soul, and share this with a sister who needs to hear it, because clarity is power, and no woman should walk blind into a future she was never truly written into. Stay grounded, stay glowing, and I'll see you in the next one.